Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. Thank you. You know, I never thought I would be saying this, but my country, your country, has become a shameful country. We are a terribly shameful country under Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government. I just can't believe what we have done now. We abandoned our friends and co-workers in Afghanistan, left them to the fate of the Taliban. Now we have done the same thing and even worse in Ukraine. The front page of the Ottawa Sun this morning, in very large, bold letters, if you haven't seen it, under a picture of the most shameful person in the country, that would be Justin Trudeau, says, shameful. Big, bold headlines in the Sun. Shameful. Talking about Canada. Talking about Trudeau. Not only did we abandon our fellow Ukrainian employees, our fellow workers at the Canadian embassy in Kiev, but Canadian workers, and this is what I find so difficult to swallow. So let me just give you the background here. This is according to a major story in the Ottawa Sun today. I'm sure the Sun chain by Brian Lilley, and he's well researched this. He's got all the facts, all the documents to prove it. But just before the Russians attacked Ukraine, we were warned here in Ottawa that the Russians planned to attack Ukraine to conquer Kiev, the capital, and capture and kill all those who had worked on behalf of the Americans and the Canadians in the embassies. This is the information that we had here. This information was then relayed to the Canadian employees of our Canadian embassy in Kiev. We evacuated our Canadian workers to Poland, but we were told, our workers were told, you must not under any conditions tell the Ukrainians who will be left behind, you cannot tell them that they may lose their lives. Lose their lives because they work for us. Our Canadian employees at the Canadian embassy in Kiev, whatever you want to call it, were told there is a good chance the Russians will attack, capture, and kill all those caught working for Canadians or Americans. That would include Ukrainian employees. The Canadians are flown out. They are evacuated immediately prior to the attack. The Ukrainians are left behind and not warned that their lives were in danger. Ottawa, Justin Trudeau, that son of a bitch. If you got a better word or better phrase to describe him, I'd sure like to hear it. That miserable, shameful, rotten son of a bitch bastard, our prime minister, instructed, and I guess Madeleine Joly, I won't even use any adjectives for her, where instructed the Canadian employees, hey, listen, we're going to evacuate you. We're going to leave the Ukrainians behind, even though they're fellow co-workers. But we cannot tell them that they may be killed because they work for us. Shameful. Shameful. We abandoned our fellow workers, even though we promised to rescue them in Afghanistan. We all saw the pictures and so forth. We saw it. Left them to the fate of the Taliban. God knows what's happened to many of them now. Not that anybody here in Ottawa gives a flying fox fart. And now we have abandoned our fellow workers at our embassy in Ukraine. Not only abandoned them, but didn't warn them that if they hung around, they might be killed. Now, fortunately, because of the tremendous resistance of the Ukrainian people, the Russians were not able to conquer Kiev. And so the lives were spared. But our Canadian, I just want to repeat, our Canadian employees buggered off, flew the coop, left the Ukrainians behind, and didn't warn them. Because at that point, there didn't seem to be much question that the Russians were so powerful, so well armed, etc., that they would overcome, Ukrainian resistance in 2 or 3 days. Kiev would fall. All of those who had worked for the Americans or the Canadians who had been left behind. Now, let me just say this. The Americans didn't leave anybody behind. The Americans, they rescued, they flew out all of those who worked for them, whether they were Ukrainian, Polish, Belarus, whatever they were. They rescued them. But did Canada? No, this shameful country left them behind and didn't warn them. Now, if anybody, let me just ask you this. Have you, in all of your experience, in your study of history, have we ever elected a more rotten, cruel, callous, incompetent, stumbling, bumbling, son of a bitch, shameful person to any public office in this country than Justin Trudeau? I know this is harsh. I wouldn't be allowed to say this in regular radio, and I probably won't be allowed to say it much longer in this program when the Justin stormtroopers take over either. But I'm saying it now. This is shameful. I'm not ashamed to be a Canadian because I think that most of us don't subscribe to something like this. But this is now a shameful country led by a rotten, miserable, shameful, callous person. In fact, a number of persons. And one of the questions I have, where are all the decent liberals out there with a conscience? Do we not have any liberals left in the caucus with a freaking conscience? Many of those in the caucus, many of those in the liberal government and the hierarchy must have known damn well what was going on. Must have known, in fact, some of them obviously helped to issue the warning to Canadians. Don't tell the Ukrainians they may be murdered. Don't tell them that. Murdered because they work for us. Don't tell them that. There must be many people here in Ottawa who knew what was going on, and nobody blew the whistle. Nobody. What a shameful country we have become. John, I'm sorry to say it. Love the country, love the people, but there are some bastards running things here. Some rotten, shameful, son of a bitch bastards. That's all I can say. Go ahead, John. Tell people how to get in touch with me if they want.
Yep, and the comments are starting to trickle in now. So, and by the way, we've got a bit of a delay because I am in New Brunswick, so the internet's not great here. There is a bit of a delay between Lowell and I, so our apologies for that. First and foremost, share on your social media. Now, speaking of social media, we're on Facebook, The Lowell Green, Blast the Radio, and Milkman Show. You can comment wherever you would ordinarily comment below the video on that. Same goes with YouTube, youtube.com/blasttheradio, and on twitch.tv/blasttheradio. And we especially encourage your phone calls. We really want to have a conversation with you. 613-413-2217. You can text as well. And finally, email lowell@blasttheradio.com. Ready for comments, sir?
I'm ready for comments. Does anybody care? That's what I'm asking. Does anybody care out there anymore?
It's quiet. I'm surprised we're not seeing more, but here's what we've got for you. Joshua says if it's not clear that all that matters to Trudeau is what he believes will get him elected, particularly his financial environmentalist base, it should be now. He has no courage, no guts, and no pride. Shameful is not giving this its due. Terry says, how will Jolie and Trudeau twist this one? James asks, that globalist traitor Justin Trudeau has to go on a permanent vacation. Comments are starting to really come in now. Anne says, I'm ashamed at what this flawed liberal government has done to what this country used to stand for. Absolutely ashamed. Lowell is right. I love your passion, Lowell. We care, Lowell, says Alan. It is shameful, says Brian. Why is Singh still backing this guy, asks Tom.
Good question. By the way, I encourage everybody, to read Brian Lilley's story this morning. I mean, this is one of the most shameful things that I have ever experienced in my country. I never thought this country would come to this, where not only do we abandon our employees, our fellow workers, but we don't warn them that they may be killed because they worked for us. And nobody seems to care. There had to be all kinds of people up in Parliament Hill and elsewhere who knew what was going on, but nobody blew the whistle. I mean, you examine the history of the Second World War, and a lot of people say, well, how could the average German stand by and allow this to happen? The Polish people, they must have known these death camps were in their midst. How come nobody did anything? Well, maybe we're beginning to see a little bit of something like that here in my country. I mean, if the Russians had been able to conquer the Ukrainian army, which everybody thought they would, very clearly, excuse me, those workers who were working for us would have been killed. That apparently was the Russian plan, and we knew it, but didn't warn them. It's something I never thought would happen in this country. Go ahead, John. What else have we got to say here?
It's that we were told to not warn them, and people went, "Okay, that's
what I'm
sickening
saying
to me."
Don't wonder any longer how so many people could have turned the other cheek and pretended they didn't know what was going on in Nazi Germany, because obviously we had much the same kind of thing here. We've got people here in this city working for government in all probability, and probably members of parliament as well, who knew that by refusing to warn our Ukrainian co-workers, we were sentencing them to death. At least that was the belief, and they didn't do bugger all about it. Go ahead, John.
It's so gross. Over to YouTube, and Tony says, Canada is getting exactly what it deserves. We voted him in, and it was clear from day one with Trudeau that he was an imbecile who cannot string two words together. Why the shock? Dean says it's bad enough to not rescue embassy staff. It's even worse to deliberately not warn them. What the F? Asks Dean. This isn't just shameful. It's criminal negligence. All right, let's go to Nancy. She says, Trudeau lies so much. David on Facebook says, Americans never leave anyone behind. Shame on the Canadian government for this. Murray says, been trying to wake people up for years. Over to Hazel. We care, Lowell. You are so right.
Talking about the America, let me just, sorry, John, jump in here.
No, go ahead.
The same thing happened in Afghanistan, as you recall. The Americans rescued their people. So did the Dutch. So did a couple of other countries. I forget which were involved now. There was one country, do you remember, John? Maybe my memory is fading a bit here, that actually they rescued a few of our people by going in with a bus and defied the Taliban, and they rescued some of our people. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the Americans rescued all of those who'd worked for them. The Americans did it. We left them behind. We promised that we would rescue them, that we would help them in Afghanistan. We did not do so. In fact, our military, as you recall, and I'm not blaming the military, they were under orders, were ordered to leave.
Right.
We abandoned our workers over there, including, by the way, some Canadians. We were lucky to get the Canadians out. It was only through the efforts of some other countries, including the United States, that we managed to get all the Canadians out, because essentially we just turned our backs. What's the matter with this country? And why do people allow this to happen? There's got to be all kinds of people who know what's going on and just don't do anything. Go ahead, John.
Bill on Facebook. Every time I think Trudeau and his minions can't sink any lower, he brings more shame onto Canada. Eileen, she says, we knew, but not for certain. Now we know what Trudeau has done. He's on vacation, and those people are getting killed. What is he going to do now? China, his favorite country, is now surrounding Taiwan.
I just want to correct something. They're not getting killed because the Ukrainian people managed to fend off the Russians. Don't forget, when the Russians attacked, everybody, including us in Canada, thought for sure that this would be a very short war, that the Russians will overpower the Ukrainians and wipe them out. It didn't happen. So as a consequence, Nobody from the embassy that we are aware of lost their lives because of this, only because of the bravery of the Ukrainian people. But the point I'm trying to make is when we abandoned them, we were almost certain they were going to be killed. Go ahead.
Over to YouTube. Trudeau panders only to those who will give him the vote, free money, etc. Very few people in the general public know what Lowell is speaking of or what Trudeau really is. An ass, blank, 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 blank.
You know, Debbie has just brought me a little note here, and this is a good example of how times have changed. Do you remember during the not Ukrainian, but Iranian crisis, the American embassy overwhelmed, a number of
Sure do.
Americans captured and kept in captivity?
Yep.
Ken Taylor, you remember that? Head of our
Absolutely.
embassy, the Canadian embassy. We were so brave at that time that at the risk of our own lives, many lives, we rescued a number of Americans, so much so that they even made a movie out of it, even though typically Canadians didn't get the credit they should have. But that's the difference. This is years ago, when we bravery rescued the Americans. Now we not only will we not rescue those who work for us, we won't even warn them of the danger. Go ahead, John.
Let's get your comments going here, folks, on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, etc. We'd love some phone calls and your texts as well, 613-413-2217. While we load up on those, Lowell, how about we get a word in here for Shields?
Good people at Shields. There are some very disturbing things happening here, but thank God for companies. And Shields is not the only. There are plenty of companies out there that operate very, very, very honestly, very upfront, and with principle. That's what they do at Shields. They understand. Listen, you know what? In many ways, Ottawa's a big city, but in many ways, it's a small city. If you don't serve the customers right, if you try to cut corners, etc., you overcharge, you don't deliver when you say you will, the word gets around very quickly, and that can spell disaster. Well, I'm going to tell you, no disaster at Shields. It's a good company, well known, highly regarded, reputation first rate, prices extremely competitive. 90% of anything you want in the way of appliances are there in stock to be delivered. Shields.ca. Don't forget, in addition to this, looking for a television, they are now an official Sony dealership as well. Shields.ca. John, back to you.
All right, a couple comments to get to here from Anne. First off, she says, I'm ashamed at what this flawed liberal government has done to what this country used to stand for. Absolutely ashamed. Lowell is right. I love your passion. James says, it's like a cult, Lowell. You cannot question it. It's like a cult. Our government says Dean is more concerned getting gender-neutral army uniforms and electric cars than they are about rescuing people who worked to help us.
You know,
And
one of the
Terry-
questions, one of the questions I have, this is the second time we've done this, abandoned people working for us, even though we promised we'd look after them. If this continues, how are we going to get anybody to work for us in some of these foreign embassies? I mean, this word must be getting around now. You know what? You can't trust the Canadians. You work for the Canadians, and there's some trouble in the country. They ain't going to help you. They'll just run away and leave you. That word must already be out there. This is not the. I'm going to tell you right now, and this is under former Liberal governments as well. This is not the way this country used to be. This is since Justin Trudeau was elected. Just this idea of abandoning our friends and co-workers. This is primarily under Justin Trudeau, the most shameful person. Here's my question that I ask it again. Can you think of anybody in any elected office who is more shameful, done more damage to this country than this Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau? And by the way, just to add a little bit of levity to it here, okay? I know I'm getting pretty passionate here. Debbie examined the picture of Justin Trudeau on the front page of the Ottawa Sun today and has concluded that in addition to dyeing his hair, wearing false eyebrows, which we all know because we once saw one fall, he also wears eyeliner. I just thought I'd pass that along. Dyes his hair, false eyebrows, Does he have false eyelashes? I don't know. I'll leave that to some of you women. But she swears up and down, close examination, he wears eyeliner. You know what? I've reached the point now where I have absolutely no respect whatsoever for this man. I will humiliate in any way I can. Go ahead, John.
For the record, I would like to point out that these eyebrows right here, these are for real. Lowell's having a little laugh at them yesterday.
Well, yeah, I questioned him yesterday on this. I said, "What the hell did you do with your eyebrows?" And
they're just going gray.
They're going gray. Okay, that's understandable. That is acceptable. Go ahead.
I don't have a problem with him wearing eyeliner, whatever. I mean, if that's going to make him happy, so be it. But yeah, it's the whole fakeness of it and the presentation he's putting on.
That's what I'm talking about. Dyed hair, false eyebrows. Go ahead.
His father certainly didn't need to do any of that to attract the ladies, did he?
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's the falsehood, the misleading. Go ahead, John, please.
Yeah, it's a disguise. Anyway, okay. Blair says, I don't understand what is going on in Canada. Why is this country so divided? People need to start looking at the facts on each political party and realize that they all have problems. We need to get together as a country and make decisions based on facts. DL says he is so vain. Gag.
Well, just a minute. Hold on just a minute. I have to go back to that last one. They all have problems. Okay. What problems does the Conservative Party have?
Well,
we've got several people vying for the leadership.
Their stance on the gay community on the gay community for one bothers the hell out of me. Just tell me where you stand. Tell me where you stand.
No, they voted for gay marriage. I don't know. I don't understand the question.
I have yet to hear Pierre Poilievre.
Oh yeah, no, he does. Oh no, he has.
Okay, I'm not doubting it. I haven't heard it.
I say this about Pierre. There was a time a number of years ago when he was opposed. He admits that, but he says as he's grown older and seen what's going on, he has changed his mind and is now quite accepting. Which, by the way, I think many of us could say. I'm going to tell you something. There was a time when I was opposed to gay marriage as well. But you grow older, you see what's going on, you understand, you become more broad-minded, and you change your mind. That to me is growth. That to me is when people grow. If you keep the same opinion you've got all of your life, then go ahead, John, please.
No, and thank you for that. I appreciate that. I think that's the big knock on the Conservatives right now is people. That's one of the ones I hear anyway. Conservatives have an identity crisis, says DL. Sadly, need more unity. Patricia says, I don't care what he looks like. Just wish he had some integrity. Christina says, can't believe this news. Should be huge, and mainstream media should be all over this. Lowell, thanks for keeping us updated. Hear it first on the Lowell Green Show.
Well, the mainstream it's the front page of the huge front page of the Sun today.
True.
The word shameful right across the bottom with a picture of Justin Trudeau there. Now, the rest of the mainstream media, which is liberal biased, as you know, probably will ignore this story. But that's typical. That's something that Conservatives got to live with. Go ahead, John.
Let's go to email. The address here is lowell@blasttheradio.com. Paul in Canada, thank you very much. He says, when Melanie Joly was named Minister of Foreign Affairs, she said that she wants to make our foreign policy humble and audacious. Today, the Globe and Mail reported that the first draft of our new global affairs Indo-Pacific policy contains no mention of China as a treat or adversary.
As a threat,
I believe the word is threat, yeah. Our foreign policy sadly has turned into a total gong show with no recognition of who our long-term allies and friends are. There you go. And Paul says our phone line is not working. I'll give that a little reboot, Paul. Thank you so much. It should be working. And while we do that, I'll just get down to the bottom of the comments and get you some fresh ones here, Lowell. All those false things Trudeau wears might explain his false promises since 2015. The Conservatives need to combine back to one party, says Kerry, not different versions. Conservatives got us signed on to the mess we're in now, says Murray. And let's go to...
so this is this is all Harper's fault. I forgot. As a matter of fact, in Brian Lilley's story, he says the only defense that the Liberals ever advanced for abandoning our people was a letter apparently that Harper sent in 2004. So this is... I'm so sorry. It's all Harper's fault. There's no question about it. We abandoned our friends and workers in Afghanistan because of Harper. We abandoned our friends and workers in Ukraine because of Harper. No question about it. It's all Harper's fault. Ay, ay, ay. Tickle my fanny. Go ahead, please.
I'd rather not. Waiting for the phone to reboot. We'll see if we've got some text to read. Meanwhile, we've got Blair on Facebook saying, I agree, Lowell, but Pierre has to stop talking about getting rid of the Bank of Canada and going to cryptocurrency. We have an idiot running the country.
Hold it. He never said, where do people get these ideas? Please. What he said was he would fire the president of the Bank of Canada. He didn't say he was going to scrap the Bank of Canada. Don't be so silly. And going to cryptocurrency, all he said was people should be free if they want to buy cryptocurrency. That's how things get twisted around. Jumping Jesus. He never said he was going to scrap the Bank of Canada. He was very angry at the president. He said, and the president of the Bank of Canada, or chairman, whatever the hell he is, admitted that he didn't take the action he should have. Ay, 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 ay. No wonder we're in trouble here. For God's sake. Oh, Colin, blast, bloomy. Go ahead, please.
All right, Paul and Canada, thanks for...
Black Sacre, Blur Black, the Bing Bong Bat. That kind of stuff drives me crazy. I mean, here's a great guy, Brian. He's a conservative, but he totally out to lunch on these key issues here. Go ahead.
The phone is back up and running. Paul, thanks again for the heads up. Ann says, Lowell just made a great point. Who of us did not have different ideas 20 years ago? Who has not evolved since then? Most of us have. So we should not be castigated for old prejudices. In an old life, I would have voted Liberal. Then I got a brain transplant around the time Dalton McGuinty and will never vote Liberal again. I will never raise your taxes. Yeah, right. I call bullshit of you, Dalton lying McGuinty.
I have to remind people. I think that you would admit that I'm a pretty staunch conservative right now. Would you say that? Well, I ran for the Liberals on 2 occasions, so I changed my mind, okay? That's what happens as you grow older and much wiser. In the case of people moving from Liberals and NDP to the Conservatives, that's just wisdom at work. Go ahead, John.
What's the matter with this country, you ask, Lowell? We do not have a strong leadership. Trudeau has got to go. I was not a fan of Trudeau Sr., but I fully believe that even he would be ashamed of his son. Words from Deb by text. Out to Alberta for this text. Trudeau has made it clear he does not think about monetary and foreign policy. He only thinks about environmental policies.
Well, somebody thought about foreign policy when they told the Canadian employees in the Kiev embassy not to warn the Ukrainians that they were going to be killed by the Russians. So somebody must have been thinking foreign policy. Why they would say that, I don't know. Why they wouldn't want... Well, I think I know. And that is that the plan was to rescue only the Canadians. Flew them out to Poland. And there probably were a lot of Ukrainians and families and so forth, and we didn't want to be bothered. But we knew that if you warn them, you tell them that the Russians are going to kill them, then there would be very strong demands. You got to look after us and take us out. And we just weren't prepared to do that. That's all. That's why. Don't tell them that they may be murdered by the Russians. Oh, no, they may want to escape with us. We can't have that. Go ahead, please.
All right, we've got about a minute left. Off to YouTube for this comment. Everything is Harper's fault? What a friggin' joke. Must be a fibral government. Ha, ha, ha. Harper did more for this country than Trudeau did or ever will. And on Twitch, Laurentian View Terry echoes that, saying, Harper has forgotten more than Trudeau will ever know.
No, it's Harper's fault. It's Harper's fault. Oh, my goodness. I have to go. All
right, sir.
Thank you all. Some good comments today. But please, if you get a chance, read Brian Lilley. If you never bought a newspaper in your life, bum one off the neighbor, steal one off your neighbor's porch or something. But read what Brian Lilley has to say. It
on the internet, folks. It's free.
Yeah, it's free.
On the internet.
Thank you all. The connection's much better today. When are you coming home, John?
I'll be leaving back home for Monday.
Glad to have you back here, sir. Thank you all, folks. We'll be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.